Human experience cannot be properly grounded. Thank you.
All right, now Jeremy and I will each do a 5-minute rebuttal of each other's talks. Some of the folks here may recognize where this quote comes from. I was with you when many of you, when I snapped the photo. It's from Matilda Gage's home down in Fayetteville, New York. Matilda was a prominent advocate for women's suffrage and a fearless abolitionist. She used her home as a stop at the Underground Railway and worked with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony to promote women's rights. She was among those heroes that dedicated her life to improving life for all of us by challenging the established sense of morality. Matilda Gage recognized the moral advancement required distancing ourselves from religious doctrine and from the very notion of humanity religion promotes. But let me go back one more time to our definition of morality. Regulating moral intuitions, regulating human interactions is the key to an effective moral system. What God you worship, or what shape you carve out of a block of wood, or what you say to yourself when you smack your finger with a hammer is utterly irrelevant. What matters is how people interact. Let's take a look at the clearest, most concise moral instruction the Bible gives us, the Ten Commandments. How is it that putting Yahweh first among your list of gods will help you treat your neighbors better? What about making statues that qualifies you as a social pariah? Is anyone harmed by someone uttering a few meaningless words to themselves? Wouldn't it be more productive to perhaps help your mother clean up her yard on Sunday or Saturday or whatever day it is than being pious in inaction? These are the top 4 moral commands of the Bible. Is this really the best moral code we can imagine? Finally, number 5, at least a vague reference to being nice to someone else. But kin relationships already tend to be less violent than those with strangers. It hardly seems necessary to tell us to be nice to people when we want to be nice to them already. In Commandments 6 through 9, did the Israelites really wander the desert for 40 years thinking that killing your neighbors or stealing their food or lying to them was perfectly okay? Did those stone tablets really advance the morality of the day? How about coveting your neighbor's wife or lawn tractor or whatever? Here we have, coveting. Here we have thought crime, where you could have donated your kidney to save someone's life, but if you've always admired somebody's sporty BMW, you're a social outcast. But all kidding aside, when your morality comes from a book, it has serious consequences. If your morality came from a book, we would think nothing of slavery, genocide, and worst of all, we wouldn't have lobster. When it comes from a book, your morality is static or stuck in time. As this poor woman found out when her community decided to uphold the biblical command required for someone caught worshiping the wrong God, or not being a virgin at marriage, or allowing herself to be raped, quote unquote, allowing herself to be raped, or maybe picking up sticks on Sunday. It could have been any of a number of offenses for which stoning to death is the biblically moral prescription. If morality comes from a book, it's subject to multiple interpretations. And we've seen how well this moral code works for the inhabitants of the, quote, Holy Land.
30 seconds, Dave. Yeah.
Thank you. How is it that two peoples are going to come to a reasonable, a peaceful agreement when they both believe that the all-powerful creator of the universe has put their names on the deed to the same piece of land, the answer is that one or both will need to disregard the book that they believe holds the key to the universe. If morality comes from a book, it's devoid of relevant circumstances. Where in the Bible does it tell us how to resolve the dispute between a husband and his in-laws when it comes to removing the feeding tube for his comatose wife? We'll wrap up in just a second. These are not easy issues, but we move one step forward when we use our reason and compassion, and many step backwards when we try to pluck relevant passages from a Bronze Age text written by men that would never have contemplated such a situation. No, we don't get our morality from a book. It comes from evolution, and unfortunately, sometimes it comes from our culture. Notice that the cross on these men's shirts gives an idea of where they get their moral guidance. And we often must do our best to transcend such misguided cultural values which they use. And finally and ultimately, it comes from reason. And reason is the one way to create a better, more moral world.
Thank you very much. In rebuttal to Mr. Courtney's accusations, I first want to quote Fyodor Dostoevsky, "If God is removed from the picture, all is permissible." And so again, he did not answer, in a random, unguided universe, how do we get reasonable sets of standards? He has said human reason, but my question that he did not answer was, which human? This is a problem when you, as Francis Schaeffer said, have your feet floating in midair. The issue becomes one, is the atheist or the naturalist approaching this objectively? Well, let's hear from one, Aldous Huxley. For myself, as no doubt for most of my contemporaries, the philosophy of meaninglessness was essentially an instrument of liberation. The liberation we desired was simultaneously liberation from a certain political, economic system and liberation from a certain system of morality. We objected to morality because it interfered with our sexual freedom. We objected to the political and economic system because it was unjust. The problem is when we reduce mankind down to a system of reflexes and neurons firing just at random, the issue becomes there is no ground to say anything that Mr. Courtney has just proposed. Because what is true justice if we don't even have an afterlife? This was Kant's issue. Kant said, I must ground ethics in some type of theistic worldview, or there's just no justice. So let's see what happens when we're the natural byproduct of things. Well, the first thing is the interesting thing becomes is in, let's say, the Crusades, for example. I would admit they're evil, but the Scripture clearly indicates that. That Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, or my servants would have fought for me. So we know that's in direct contradiction. But let's take Pol Pot's regime, for example. What an atheism in random, unguided processes says that anything he did was wrong. This is the dilemma of the non-theist, to ground their morality in something other than God, because there is true, no objective, transcendent value to humanity. We are just a part of nature. And the last time I checked, outside or anywhere else, the direction of the wind blowing does not tell me I should obey my mother. And again, my question becomes, whose reason? We must discuss this for the betterment of ourselves. But the other thing is the Bible clearly declares in Judges 21:25, and just let me know. Okay, great, thank you very much. In Judges 21, that it was a continuous cycle of people doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. Here is the true, if we are going to be honest, extension of what really happens in a naturalistic materialist worldview. Stephen Jay Gould, we are here because one odd group of fishes had a peculiar fin anatomy that could transform into legs for terrestrial creatures. Because comets struck the earth and wiped out dinosaurs, therefore giving mammals a chance not otherwise available. So thank your lucky stars in a literal sense. because the earth never